whoever's participating that hasn't participated.
Although we will always affectionately refer to him as Stoneman Willie, in the years to come, the immortal Stoneman name doesn't recognize the true identity of a life lived.
I don't know if this thing's on. Okay.
As far as a family coming forward 128 years later, that's not very probable, but you know what? Improbable things happen in life, so we'll have to wait and see.
That on this hollow ground will lie the immortal soul of Stoneman Willie, otherwise known as
Leslie Caron. I mean, there's so much here.
Yeah, I'll say.
You know, it goes on. I think you can get some general shots. Well, because we were going to do mainly things that were in this exhibition. Robert P. Metzger, Director Emeritus of the Reading Public Museum.
And do you give us permission to use your video and audio for the documentary?
Yes, full permission. This is a costume worn by Claire Trevor in the early 40s film Honky Tonk. She was really dominated by the two major stars, Clark Gable and Lana Turner, who had already started making films together. But this was the feathered cap, feathered sleeves of Claire Trevor, who, as you may remember, won the Oscar for Key Largo a few years later.
And just you really, I mean, you're passing through, you know, the decades and the centuries, right? Surrounded by history, not just film history, but true history that we live through.
Oh, he would have loved it, you know. He was out to promote clothing, costumes. You know, he was really an expert on what people put on their backs, what they wear. A suit is a suit, a dress is a dress. I mean, it's all of these little details that make them distinctive and different in the coloring and the texture, and that's what fascinated Gene. And it does create an awareness in the public just to look a little closer at things, you know, examine a little more. And I think we have such a rich history, and this is kind of a quirky part of our history, but I thought it was wonderful just to get people interested in Reading's past. That's about all I can say about it.
And two, just since the last time I talked to you, I know in talking with other people.
Well, any historical event, there are going to be all these reverberations and just circles of influence out.
Grade went from 2nd Street to 11th, and at 6th and Penn, the bike just shut off. And I was sitting next to it when it happened. I looked at the guy that was riding the bike and I went, "Are you kidding me?" And he went, "It'll start up." And it was not going to start up. It wasn't even trying to turn over at that point. So we're like, oh gosh, we're not even through the middle of the parade here. Thankfully, we had our hearse in the parade as a fallback. Kyle Blankenbiller, it's K-Y-L-E, last name B as in boy, L-A-N as in Nancy, K-E-N as in Nancy, B as in boy, I-L-L-E-R, and I am the location manager here at Allman Funeral Homes. There's been little things that have happened that kind of just shaking our heads a little bit going, we've never had this happen previously. What's happening here? Is this Willie trying to tell us something? And none of us are superstitious, but it's just all so coincidental that all these odd little things have been occurring. And not a lot, but enough that gets you scratching your head a little bit. But once you're not here anymore, can you just kind of let us alone? So we'll see. But yeah, it's been a couple of little things here and there that have been little, tilt head kind of moments. Yeah. And it's generational. It's older folks, it's younger folks, it's kids. It's crazy. I don't even know where half these people are coming from. In all honesty, I don't. Certainly faces we've never seen before. So it's nice. We've had people that have called and driven from Virginia, from Maryland, Massachusetts, New York, Maine, one from Oklahoma. One family came up from Florida, drove from Florida, left on Tuesday morning, just to see Willie.
Stoneman Willie came a sneaking around, gonna find out fast that the law is in town. They won't put up with the small town crime, they gonna handcuff him for the second time. Take us back to the
My name is Patty Blatt, Pattyblatt. I'm a paranormal investigator. I'm also an on-air personality for WEEU AM radio station. Well, his backstory is, you know, he was a fella, he was a crook, he was a pickpocket, he got picked up public drunkenness, he died in jail, and, you know, what are you supposed to do with a person or a body that's not claimed by family or relatives? I mean, he even gave a false name. So how do you rectify that without trying to embalm him, you know, so we can find, or, you know, they could find family members, you know, preserve him a little longer? Yeah, I guess if people have a problem with their own mortality, I guess this would be an issue for them that they would have problems dealing with. I think everything's going to turn out well. I think there should be a positive outlook from this, and the naysayers will finally also be able to go at peace.
You know, going back to kind of the craziest thing this week. So I got requests for interviews and on-camera phone interviews, email, this kind of thing, Zoom calls, from all these different news outlets. And the strangest thing for me this week was hearing them referring to, they would call and say, hey, we want to do a story on the mummy. Hey, we want to talk to you about this mummy you have. And we have never referred to Willie as a mummy. So that was really, in the beginning, a little unsettling. You know, it was like, don't call him a mummy, it's Willie, you know? But clinically, he's a mummy. We understand that, we acknowledge that. But no one here certainly, and I think even the greater community, has ever referred to him, at least that I've heard. They've never said, hey, I want to come in and view the mummy. They want to come in and view Mr. Stoneman Willie. You know, so that was weird in the beginning, you know, hearing that reference. And it sounds so trivial, but it seems kind of a disrespectful term to us to use in reference to Willie, because he's just always been our friend Stoneman, you know.
It's like offending a family member.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it felt in the beginning. I mean, even though they're correct in that, it just still felt kind of a little unsettling, you know, to hear that word get used as much as it did, you know.
But the only thing I remember, his eyes were sunken in his head. And I asked somebody on Saturday, and they said, he don't have eyes. I didn't even look now. Does he have eyes? Or were they closed? I don't even know.
He looks almost like he did 50 years ago.
So you saw him 50 years ago?
Approximately.
Wow, and how did you get here, or how was that arranged?
Well, it was a few of us kids and one of our friends' mothers made an appointment. We rode our bikes across town, and they brought us in and showed him to us.
It's just like history in the coffin, I guess.
Right. How did you wind up here 20 years ago?
I heard about the story, the legend, or I forget who exactly told me.
Oh, my family. My husband was raised in Reading, and the kids used to come in and just look at him and see him, and I never got here. So it was on my bucket list for years, and I'm 84, so there's a lot of years in between there. I got here now, and, you know.
When I was in college in the 70s, when I would come home for a visit and bring my friends, I would bring them here always to see Stoneman Willie, the pagoda, and here.
I've experienced with Willie has been positive. We did a remote here, the radio station that I work for did a remote here, and prior to going live on the air, I went up and I took my recorders and we took some video cameras and I did an EVP session. We did get some mumbling, but you have to remember that Willie hasn't had an opportunity to speak for 128 years. So it was a little gargled, but we did get a couple words from him. One of the EVPs, my husband is also a paranormal investigator, and he had asked when I walked out of the room if he thought the girl that walked out of the room was pretty. And he said, and Willie said, yes, she's pretty.
Wow.
So, I mean, I haven't felt anything negative. I don't think there was anything negative with Willie.
The fancy hearse breaking down and all these things, and so then people were talking about this curse. And that, like, Stoneman Willie needs to be buried, and then, like, things will get better for the city, or, you know what do you think about all that kind of stuff? Do you sense that that's a thing, or just sort of, I don't know.
I don't think it's a curse per se, but for someone that's been laying around for 128 years, if he could cause a little chaos, I think he's down with that.
And then years later when I got married, my husband told me, get this, for a school trip, they took him down to the funeral home to see Stoneman Willie. The gentleman that took him down, took him in to see Stoneman Willie, got all the kids in the room, and after all the kids were in the room, he left and locked them in the room. And what a panic attack. The kids couldn't get out, they were crying and screaming. I guess the gentleman thought it was funny.
I saw a news article on it, and it was kind of intriguing. And my wife had told me one time that she wished she could see when they exhumed the body of Edgar Mevers in the civil rights movement, that I guess
in the 60s, because they said his body was so well preserved that because his son wanted to see him when he was a baby. His father was killed, and they exhumed the body, and they told him that they would only let him look at it if it looked presentable, and they said it was totally presentable.
That he got, I guess it was some kind of a meat. They were a meat company was trying to preserve meat, and he went and got the recipe for that, I guess you would say, or whatever, and experimented with Stoneman Willie.
I've been writing all my life, and I had no idea about Stoneman Willie until recently. And I'm also a history teacher at the writing school district, and it was really cool being able to tell my kids about Stoneman Willie the other day. We also learned about ancient Egypt and mummies, and being able to kind of compare and contrast Stoneman Willie and ancient Egypt and how they preserved bodies back then. It was just they were really mesmerized and intrigued by the whole thing, and it was neat to pass on that information because a lot of them are from other places and countries and so forth, and writing has a unique history. And
the first time I'm going to see Stoneman Willie. I heard about him all my life. I'm 89, and better late than never, but I guess I didn't have as venturous of friends who would say, let's go down and see Stoneman Willie. In fact, I didn't even know you could just do that, or I'm sure I would have.
I remember being a little girl, me and my friends would come here and view the body, and we would run out of here like we'd seen a ghost, but it was just something at that time that was fun and interesting and the same. So I'm glad to be a part of this momentum, and that is forever in my heart and spirit.
It was just passed down to my mother that her cousin, Ted Wallman, he is the one that founded embalming fluid by experimenting on Stoneman Willie. He turned to stone because originally I guess he didn't have the right solution, and and we're all proud to be almonds.
We drove all the way down from Baltimore to come see Stoneman Willie. This sort of thing where you would have human remains on display. It's kind of like a historical thing that isn't really in play anymore. And it used to be something that was promoted. I was telling somebody earlier, we went and visited in West Virginia another set of mummies in Philippi, West Virginia, that a funeral home had on display to promote their embalming fluid. But when we heard about Stoneman Willie and heard that he was going to be interred, we had to come check him out because this kind of thing is disappearing, and it's nice that they're going to give him his final respects, but at the same time, when it's a part of a community and it's part of history, it's kind of sad to see him go, but I'm glad that we made the pilgrimage out here to check him out.
I always heard of him as a child, and a lot of my friends and that came and seen him, but I never got the opportunity, and tonight it's my first time.
Yes, it's my first time too, and you know, I'm so glad that I was able to at least pay my respects.
There's like a legend in Reading.
My mother was born in 1912, and my grandfather was in the police force at the turn of the century. So she grew up with my grandfather bringing her to see him, and I grew up coming to see him, and I took my children growing up to see him. But it's been a lot of years.
As the funeral home, we had opportunity to go up and see him when we wanted. And my heart broke for him because he was laying upstairs on the floor, you know. So I'm glad to see that they're finally legally being able to put him to rest.
Somebody get the idea after school, let's go see Stoneman Willie, and we'd all run down here. A bunch of us, maybe 6, 7 of us would run down, knock on the door, and they'd let us in and let us see him. Nobody ever told us to go away, you're bothering us, this is a business. You know, they were nice to us, and they'd explain things about how his hair grew and his fingernails grew.
And what
they did a number of things years ago which you wouldn't do today, and which corporate entities wouldn't allow. Sometimes they would put a Halloween costume on him, or sometimes they would decorate him for Christmas, have him sit on a chair in the corner. And but that's a long time ago. That had been discontinued many years before I first got in here and looked around a little bit and made some inquiries. But that's what they did many years ago.
Right.
Well, first of all, I got woken up yesterday by a phone call from a friend of mine from Amsterdam and said, "Oh, I heard you've got a mummy in your area." And here it was in the news in Amsterdam, and I've lived here my whole life, and I never even knew this, that he was here. And so right away I started Googling everything, and I saw where he was going to be buried, and I thought, wow, what an incredible story. I've got to go up there and see him. I just got to go up there and see him. So now I even want to come to like the parade and the grand finale of this man finally getting laid to rest. And it's great that you people have kept this alive and allowed it to be seen. And I'm just thrilled to be here tonight.
And I also wanted to pay my respects to Stoneman Willie because he is embedded in my heart, and so he always will be.
So my dad, his name is Bill Peffley, he grew up in Reading, and all through our childhood he told us about Stoneman Willie, and we didn't believe it. We thought it was something he made up. And about 31 years ago, we were all visiting the area, and we ate across the street at the Peanut Bar. And when Dad looked out the window, he said, "That's where Stoneman Willie is." And so he said, "I'm going to go over and prove it to you." So we all came over, and he asked whoever was here, could we go see him? And they took us like outside to some garage and up these rickety steps, and we went in, and there he was, and he was covered with a sheet, and he was wearing like blue and white striped pajamas. And so we all looked at him and said a prayer for him, and we finally believed Dad after all those years.
Well, I used to do hair here. I did it for like 30 years. And before I would leave at the end of the night or whenever, I would go back to see him, and I'd touch his hand and I'd say goodnight to him, because it was dark back there and nobody saw him, and I felt sorry for him.
So you went out to your car, and what happened?
This was at my door, and it wasn't there when we came in, so Willie left it for me.
I think what I want to say is that I'm really happy that they're going to lay him to rest, and that they're making such a big deal of it, because so many people in my generation felt that this was just kind of like one of those tales that just isn't really the truth. And especially the people that didn't get the chance to do a field trip with school or with the Brownies or the Girl Scouts, they didn't come and check out the place. So it's a long time coming. I mean, it was since I'm a young child, my entire life. So I'm just really happy to see that things are gonna move along for him and he can get the proper burial that he should have.
Yeah, I would have thought that most of Berks County would have been absolutely tickled that Willie is finally getting his resting place. But there's a lot of grievance with that too. Like, it should have been done years ago. But I've been telling people, you know, if you wanted to like take a hand in this 25 years ago instead of complaining about it, maybe you should have stepped up 25 years ago or 30 years ago or 50 years ago. You know, there's no sense of complaining about it now.
So to bring him down here, we have 2 elevators. One of them is internal, but it doesn't accommodate a casket. The second one does. The second one, these elevators are serviced regularly, right? Quarterly, serviced regularly, maintained consistently. The elevator we needed to bring him down broke. Was stuck on the 3rd floor. We're like, okay. So we got right elevator in on an emergency call. They fixed it. Like, cool, we're good to go. Thursday of last week, our one director's coming home with our limousine. The limousine was going to be in the parade on Sunday. It overheated. Never overheated before. Overheated. So she pulled a McDonald's at Mount Penn. We had to have it towed back to Firestone and fixed, and thankfully we were able to use it for the parade. It was an easy fix, thank goodness. Sunday, I don't know if y'all know, but Sunday, the motorcycle died.
Yeah, we were there.
I was literally right next to it at 6th and Penn when I heard it shut off, and I was like, are you kidding me? And this thing would not restart.
Yeah.
And so we ended up having to push that thing off the side, and half the parade only saw him in the back of our motorcycle door,
with the door.
which really kind of chapped us. You
Yeah.
know, we were like, oh my gosh, we did all this effort, and this motorcycle was so cool, and FNZ ran an article on the motorcycle, and half the parade only saw him in the back of the hearse. So we're like, okay, Willie, you can stop screwing with us. So we bring a limousine back, and we park the limousine in the garage. And the middle passenger side windows down because George and Gloria Miser rode in that in the parade. So they put the windows, they're tinted, so they put the windows down so people could see them. And I go out, I was here Sunday till about 4:30 at Reuters International Press. And they were uploading their feed from covering the parade all day. And so I'm like, just stay, have at it. I said, I'll take one of the, I told my husband, take my car home. His family had come up, like, take my car home, I'll get home in one of the work vehicles. So that the limousines the easiest one to take out because the garage is filled with a trailer and the trike and the carriage. So the limousine was the first one at the garage to go out. They go out the windows down. So I go to put the window up, it won't operate. I'm like, really? So I took it over to Firestone Monday morning. They sent me a message. They're like, Kyle, these windows are operating perfectly. I'm like, now wait a minute. I'm the one who took it over there. And I went out specifically. I fired up the limousine. I walked over to that side. I opened the door. I held the window I could still grab, toggled the switch, and was pulling on it. It wouldn't budge. He goes, God, they're working perfectly. Nothing's wrong with it. He said, I didn't even do a work order on it because of that. I'm like, you know what? This guy.
He doesn't want to go. He wants
This
to
guy.
stay here.
I know.
Yeah.
I said to my boss, if stuff starts happening here, you know, at the cover of darkness under spotlights, we're removing him from Forest Hills and we're bringing him back. So we don't know if it's a curse. We don't think it is, but we'll see. Yeah.
Great story.
But we have been inundated with phone calls about the details for tomorrow. And are we able to be there for that? And this, yes, absolutely, you're able to be there for it. So it's an open event. So we're really going to maybe be scrambling tomorrow, trying to accommodate all of these folks that are going to be arriving. I don't know if the weather will dissuade some folks from attending, but we're anticipating tomorrow to be an event just so much larger than what we were initially anticipating, just because of the constant phone inquiries all day, I mean all week. I joked with our staff today, I said we haven't really been too busy with funerals this week. It's been kind of a slow week with funerals. And normally we'd sit back and go, huh, why isn't the phone ringing? You know, this week it was a relief. You know, everybody was consumed on some level with this. Certainly, I probably had the bulk of it with all the interviews, but you know, it was answering phones, it was answering doors. We actually had part-timers come in here and just be stationed here all day because of people coming during the day to see Willie. So again, I'm not complaining about that. It's a great thing, but it's been much more of an event than we really expected it to turn into, certainly.
special post.
And here we have Charlie Adams.
Good morning. Good evening. Yep.
George M. Miser, comma, I-X, George comma, I-X. Well, I must confess that during the course of this week and during the course of the 275, the outstanding event has to have been the parade on Penn Street with Stoneman Willie. Many people came out and commented to me afterwards that they were so eager to witness that thing, particularly that hearse, which is something else. That will remain in the people's minds for a long, long time, I have no doubt.
Gosh, I don't know. If you were going to write a book about all this, what would you title it?
Believe it or not. Well, you have to realize that of all the things that deal with Berks County and writing history, nothing has touched as many people, the regular folk of the town, more than a visit to Stoneman Willie. I'll bet you that in a certain period, 10% of the people in the town have seen him at the time that they were kids. Mr. Ullman was always concerned about how long his process would prolong the useful life, if you would use that word, of Stoneman Willie. How long would he be preserved in a presentable fashion? And when Tom Bolin used to ask him, how's he doing? He always said, the vigil continues. The vigil continues. As of today, the vigil concludes.
Sitting in.
I graduated in '63.
This thing's on? Okay. Thank you all for being here today to help support us in giving our friend his day of honor and respect. So let's round of applause. We'll welcome Charles Adams.
Thank you very much. This is amazing. What an amazing morning, and It's also the 74th anniversary of the death on this date of Edgar Allan Poe. And I'm wearing my Edgar Allan Poe socks today. Stoneman Willie. He's not made of stone. His name was not Willie. Or was it? But what is absolutely certain that he was in life, a man. His afterlife, so to speak, has been rather anomalous. He could well have been ignominiously ensconced in a crude body bag or a pine box and interred in a pauper's grave in a potter's field under a marker with a number on it, if that. He died intestate. There were no friends, no relatives to give him a proper burial, I put that in quotes, or to mourn him. Instead, there were those who, in a sad sense, mocked him, as if he was nothing more than a macabre sideshow freak. Willie has been called a mummy by some and certain observers. He's been referred to as an historical relic. I contend he is neither. I submit that while the circumstances of his life and his death are shrouded forever in mystery, he indeed lived that life as a flesh and blood man, met with misadventures and misfortunes, and died as a man would die. But lo, as a result of an accident or experiment, he reposed for many decades as a quaint and quirky curiosity. The remains of that man came to this place after being cloaked in a handsome raiments, celebrated by thousands, heralded by a brass band in a gala parade, and reposing in a stately parlor for a solemn 6 evenings as those who knew him only in legend paid tribute to his life. There were those, happily a very few, who assailed these events as crass and humiliating to the legacy of this man, this Willie. I would invite them to join in the second line of a funeral procession on Bourbon Street, or a wake in a pub in Galway, hoisting a pint of Guinness, or a mausoleum in Moscow, or an apse in St. Peter's Basilica. I would invite them to allow their blunted imaginations to appreciate and, yes, celebrate the shadowy bounds between this man's life and legend. And now today, here, with dignity, a comforting and consoling word that is in the keystone of Allman's Funeral Home's corporate identity, the remains of this man, who shall forever be known in the ledger of the legends and lore of Berks County as Willie, despite any research that may prove and has proven otherwise, will be sealed serenely and safely in the soil for eternity.
His legendary reputation is such that can be verified by the number of people here assembled to witness his departure from the land of the living. That time has come to lay Willie to rest in a respectable manner and in an appropriate location. I chose with the thought that, Mr. Allman, wherever you are, be apprised that on this day, the vigil concludes.
Friends, we are gathered here today to lay to rest one who went by the name James Penn and who we have known as Stoneman Willie, who at one time may have been a beloved friend and family member to those who may have personally known him. He did become a friend of all those who compassionately took care of him for over 128 years. Now, although this man struggled maybe with addictions and made mistakes during his life, as we all do, we have come to know him as well as a celebrity as such in Reading. And so it is we gather here today to commend to God the life of Stoneman Willie. So friends, into your hands, O merciful Savior, now we commend Stoneman Willie. Acknowledge, we humbly pray, a sheep of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock, a son of your own redeeming. Let us pray. O Lord, support now all of us the day long of this troubled life, until the shadows lengthen and the evening comes and the busy world is hushed. The figure of life is over and our work is finally done. Then in your mercy, grant us a safe lodging and a holy rest and peace at last. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And now may God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May God look upon you with kindness and give you peace. Let us go forth in the name of Christ. Amen.
There were two mummies that we know of in Almond's possession. Mr. Willie and the gentleman by the name of Michael Pahowski, however you want to say it, however you want to pronounce it, however you want to spell it. So Mr. Pahowski is identified as a gentleman who did indeed commit suicide in the Berks County Prison. So both died in Berks County Prison. Both were unclaimed. Pahowski never had family step forward. Two bar patrons at the bar that he was arrested at for stabbing a local patron stepped forward and positively identified him as a very well-known barfly at this bar on Cotton Street in the south side of Reading. I personally visited Mr. Pahowski's grave. The dates line up. I looked at the cemetery records. The dates line up on that. When it came to Willie, everything Willie told his cellmate is true. There wasn't a thing he told him that was untrue with the exception of his name. He was Irish descent from a fluent family in Ireland. So everything he said outside of a pseudo fictitious name was indeed correct. So we've had a lot of questions as to how we came upon this and do we know it for sure? I would say with 99% certainty, and that 1% is a family member walking forward and saying, this is my great uncle, James. So we're fairly certain, I shouldn't say fairly certain, we're very certain, or we wouldn't have put it on his stone. And it's my pleasure, our pleasure, to participate. Although I got a shout out from Mr. Miser, I would like to thank our team, our entire team, because this was certainly a team effort in bringing this forward and giving Willie the respectful day he so rightfully deserves. So thank you, Almond team, for everything it is you have done. It certainly was a intensive effort. So on that, having said that, I'd like to reintroduce to you Rochelle Hess and Michael Harkar.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just have a few sentences I would like to say. On behalf of myself and the Allman Funeral Home family, it has been a privilege to care and continue to share in the many stories of Stoneman Willie's history. It is a bittersweet day to lay to rest our long guest at the funeral home. I hope he will continue to have many visitors in his new home here at Forest Hills Memorial Park. May you rest in peace, Stoneman Willie.
I just want to take this time to thank Rochelle for sharing them thoughts. As we conclude our week-long celebration of our dear, trusted friend, our guest at Theo C. Allman Funeral Home Incorporated since 1895, we are honored to provide him back his mortal name, which he lost so many years ago. Although we will always affectionately refer to him as Stoneman Willie, in the years to come, the immortal Stoneman name doesn't recognize the true identity of a life lived. We are honored and proud to call him our treasured guest for well over a century and a quarter. But today, recognizing the importance of bestowing the respect and reverence our dear friend so rightfully deserves, we are proud to announce that on this hallowed ground will lie the immortal soul of Stoneman Willie, otherwise known as Mr. James Murphy.
Please, Murphy. James Murphy.
Rest in peace, James.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
we know that Saturday when we come back to this funeral home, it's going to be weird, not having him here. That's going to be strange for quite some time. So we'll have to get used to that, but it's going to be different. And we've kind of joked amongst ourselves as far as who's going to be the first to cry, because that's just how endeared he was.
The story will continue, particularly with those who were involved during this process. As far as the family coming forward 128 years later, that's not very probable, but you know what? Improbable things happen in life, so we'll have to wait and see.
This is second.
Stoneman Willie came to sneaking around. Gonna find out fast that the law is in town. They won't put up with the small town crime. They gonna handcuff him for the second time. Put him in jail, throw away the key. Well, the next thing you know, he's hanging history. Mr. Stoneman Willie, get off your throne. Take us back to the funeral home. Where'd you go wrong? What did you do? Except to pick a pocket or two. When they threw him in jail, he wouldn't tell them his name. So they called him Willie with a ball and chain. The next few days, he got sick, so they called the doctor for a real quick fix. The doctor said, son, there's nothing I can do. Won't you tell me your name and your address to Mr. Stoneman Willie? Get off your throne. Take us back to the funeral home. Where'd you go wrong? What did you do? Except to pick a pocket or two. Well, we died in the day, a day or so. No one came, no one knows. So they gave him away to the funeral home. Who fixed him right up and turned him into stone. That's where he stayed for 100 years. Well, I never ever saw him shed a tear. Mr. Stoneman Willie, get off your throne. Take us back to the funeral home. Where you go wrong? What did you do? Except to pick a pocket or two. Mr. Stoneman Willie. Mr. Stoneman Willie.